Enter the realm of KSBM radio's creation. Student-led from inception to narration. Crafting content from dawn until dusk. All students involved in the work and the fuss. In the heart of Townview where voices reside. Student-led discussions where ideas collide. From interviews with leaders, peers, and businesses. Just watch us work, creating innovative content. Every aspect managed with student finesse. From podcast production to social media press. No task too daunting, no challenge too grand. KSBM Radio, we taking a stand. KSBM Radio, students leading the way. Every task idea, we seize the day. Witness now is all of our Townview.
Come closer to the music.
Broadcasting live from Marvin E. Robinson School of Business and Management, Dallas, Texas.
My radio station.
We are KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. I'm Amethyst, here with my co-hosts,
Jade.
Arum.
And today we're continuing our SBM 50 and TMC 30 alumni series, celebrating Townview graduates making an impact in their careers and communities. Our guest today is Ms. Vanessa Ramirez, a proud graduate of Law Magnet, class of 2013. Ms. Ramirez is the Director of Parenting Support Services at Hope Cottage, where she leads a team dedicated to providing education, material support, and connections to local resources that help families of young children thrive. She is a results-oriented nonprofit leader with a passion for empowering underdeserved communities and believes deeply in the power of collaboration. Ms. Ramirez holds a Bachelor of Arts in Victim Studies from Sam Houston State University and a Master's in Social Work from the University of Texas at Arlington. Ms. Ramirez, welcome back to Townview. We're excited to have you here. Is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners before we get started?
Yeah. Well, thank you again for having me. I'm really excited to just share a little bit more about what I do. And I recently got married, so I'm just still very excited about that. So I was like, I figured I'd share that. Thank you.
So, Miss, let's get started. What did your environment look like growing up, and how did it influence your interests and values?
For me, so I feel like in my environment growing up, I got a little bit of, having both parents when I was growing up until about 10 years old, and then they got divorced. So I got to have a two-parent household where I had a lot of support from both parents, and I'm the oldest of four siblings. And so being the oldest, you kind of have to set the tone and set the example. So I got a little bit of that growing up. But then also, once my parents separated, we still continuously had a lot of support at home, and a lot of it being from our grandparents. And so I feel like the values that they instilled in us is just honesty, hard work, and just being humble. So like no matter where you go, work hard, be honest, and then always just remember where you come from.
So what ultimately inspired you to choose Townview, and how do you think the decision has shaped your path?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I think I always knew that I wanted to pursue a magnet, but I ultimately landed on the Law Magnet because I have a cousin that came here a little bit before me, so my mom was like, you have to go there. But then also I just was really interested in law and wanted to be an attorney, and so I felt like that was just the right path for me at the time because I am not an attorney right now. So. But I think ultimately it really helped just in college and just preparing for that.
Were there any teachers here at Townview that taught you something that you still carry with you today?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Mr. Severo Perez, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only student that has said that name before. But there was something that stuck with me. He said, if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think I heard that as a freshman. And then I remember thinking to myself, that's a really hard thing to figure out as a freshman. But that's something that just always stuck with me. And I feel like now in my career and what I do, I have found that. I love what I do, and I don't feel like I'm showing up to work. I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing, and it brings me a lot of joy to do it.
So were you involved in any extracurricular activities at your time at Townview, and were there any favorite memories?
Yeah, I was in Skills USA, and so we did a lot of different competitions. I think I did building search, if I remember, emblem team, community service project, and I think for me the favorite part was getting to go on field trips. So we got to go to Corpus Christi and Waco, so that's always fun, right? But those are kind of some of my favorite memories, just getting to do something more than just going to school, showing up, getting good grades. It's like those extracurriculars really do help shape you and build connections and networks. And just relationships overall. So getting to be with like classmates in a different setting, you're traveling, you get to just get to know your peers a little bit more on a deeper level. So that was pretty fun.
So how did Townview shape you for college and beyond?
Townview really, really helped in just navigating education in college. So when you go to college, you're kind of on your own. You have to make sure you're diligent with your studies, that you're, taking your tests and your classes seriously. And I feel like just being at Townview and taking pre-AP classes and AP classes just really prepared me for that. So it wasn't as much of a shock going from Townview to college. I felt like I just kind of knew what I was doing. And then also just getting involved. So for me, the growing pains in going to college was just being away from my family, because I went to Huntsville, so that's a few hours away. Not too far, but that was something different, being the first one to leave and be out there. And so I feel like Townview just gave me the tools to just be successful with the educational side of it.
What did your journey look like after graduating from Townview, and how did it lead to your current career?
Yeah, so I went to Sam Houston State thinking again I wanted to. I think at that point, I changed my mind. I wanted to be in law enforcement. So I was like, all right, Sam Houston State Criminal Justice Program. I'm set. I'm ready to go. It was my first year. And then I was like, I don't know that I want to do that. And I think one thing that I would share with you all is just don't be scared to change your mind. Like, you don't have to have it all together. Like, again, as a freshman in high school, I was like, yeah, I want to be a lawyer. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then in college, first year, I was like, I want to be in law enforcement. And it's like, actually, I don't think that's what I want to do. Ended up taking a sociology class that ended up just kind of helping me understand what I really wanted to do, and that was helping others, because that's something that just naturally came to me. That made me happy in doing that. And in that sociology class, we just learned a lot about communities and how us as a society, we can have an impact, and then what are our communities kind of navigating and struggling with. And so I found social work through that class after talking to a professor and saying, hey, I'm feeling a little lost, a little disconnected. I feel like I've always known what I wanted to do, and now I'm not really sure. And then we started talking about, what are some things that you love to do? He asked me the same question, like, if you could do something for free, what would you do? And I'm like, helping people. I would do that all day, every day. And then so he's like, well, that's social work. You can make a career out of that. And so I was like, well, wonderful. All right. So then after that, that was about, I think, my junior year. And thankfully, all of my credits transferred to switching my degree from just a general criminal justice degree to a victim studies degree, which focuses a little bit more on the social work side of crimes. And so, you have someone who's the perpetrator, who's the criminal, who's, inflicting these crimes on other individuals. And so who cares about the victims, right? The survivors of these crimes. And so I was taking classes that focused on them. And so that was like more of the social work side of it. Then after that, I applied for grad school, got my master's in social work. And then after that, I had to do internships as part of the curriculum to get my degree. And then that's kind of how I got into the nonprofit world.
So what does a typical day look like as director of parenting support services?
Yeah, well, sometimes like this. I've had a lot of different opportunities to just speak about nonprofit, about the work that we do. I've done a couple of interviews with like Univision or, radio shows, because we want people to know the work that we do, the impact that we have as a nonprofit. And right now, nonprofits are kind of holding it down for the communities, when there's something that's going on in the world that we don't necessarily have control over. It's like, how do we step up and show up for our communities and support the families and children that are being affected? And so a typical day for me, I'll go to the office, or sometimes I'll take meetings in the community. I love meeting in the community. I love networking with other individuals. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love sharing about what I do, and then also just meeting with my team. And so making sure my team is supported in all the work that they're delivering. And then I'll sometimes go into our parenting classes, which is a big part of what we do in our program, and just kind of check in with my team and get to talk to the families that we're serving too. So there's a little bit of being in the office and, taking meetings, trying to figure out what the next steps are in our program, and then just checking in to make sure the program is running smoothly. But then there's also a lot of opportunities for us to just connect with other individuals to see how we can work together.
So with that being said, what current programs or initiatives are you most proud of leading, and why?
Yeah, so my department, I'm really happy. I think I'm in year 3 now of running this department. And so for me, my program is just, I'm really proud of what we've been able to build over the last 3 years. We're able to reach about, I think this year our goal was 1,600 families to help them with their parenting education and support. For me, it's very important. It kind of just touches home because, again, like I'm the oldest of 4 girls, and, my parents, and I think back of like, if we had more support when we were growing up, like that's just really great. And so how can we bring that to our communities, to all of our families, our underserved populations that don't have access to resources or tools for them to be successful. And so for me, I'm just really proud that we get to do that and bring it to the community. And everything that we offer is for free. That's what nonprofits do. It's either super low cost or free services, because we know if people have the tools and education, they'll do better, they'll make better choices. But then also, if they are struggling or they're going through a difficult experience, they know who they can call or who they can reach out to help them navigate it. And so for me, I feel like that's the most important piece of what it is that we're doing and what I'm most proud of.
So, what challenges did you face when you first began developing programs for families, and how have you worked to kind of overcome them?
Yeah, so I think it's because you have to really center yourself in the community that you're serving. You know, you don't come in and say, well, I know everything and I'm the one who knows best and I'm going to make all of these decisions. It's very collaborative, and you have to just remember that humbleness of like, I'm here to help, and the community is going to be able to share what that help is going to look like, because they're the ones that ultimately we want to reach. And so just really listening to that feedback, you know, being involved and saying, you know, is what we're doing really helpful? Is there something that we can be doing better? And that feedback is just so important, because we don't want to just, you know, say that we're doing all this great work and then it's not really helpful, right? You know, we want to make sure that it's actually guiding the community, supporting the community, and uplifting the community. Ultimately, that's what our goal is. And so I feel like that's kind of the piece that you have to keep in mind when developing programs, is that you might have an idea for a program, and once you start rolling it out, it may be exactly what they need, but then maybe after a year or two, they're like, you know what, the needs changed. Society, the community, resources have changed, so maybe now we have to add a different layer of services or programs. And so just being able to adapt and pivot is a skill that we've just been able to develop, because we've had to do that, you know, in recent years, to just try to keep up with what is going on in the political climate. And so I think for us, it's just very important to just remember that and always check in with the community to see if what we're doing is still continuously serving them and how we can just continue to be better.
So what's accomplishment you have made? Oh, let me say that again. What is one accomplishment from your team this year that you're especially proud of?
I just say the resiliency. You know, we can't control what's going on in the world right now, but what we can control is just showing up every single day to serve the families and the communities in which we're focusing on. And so for me, I'm most proud of my team and them just showing up every day. You know, they're always smiling, they're always laughing, just bringing high energy, positivity, because that translates to hope for our parents. They see that. They come into a safe space and they feel like, you know, we're still showing up. We're just going to be here and do the best that we can to just get through these seasons of difficulty. And for me, that's what I'm most proud of with my team, is that no matter what's going on, they always show up.
I actually had a follow-up question to the challenges. How do you guys like kind of reach out to your community after like kind of seeing if they need different stuff?
Yeah, we do like pre and post test surveys, but we also would just ask them. So, you know, our classes, I'd say they're pretty intimate. You know, we cap our classes maybe 25 to 30 parents. And so we wanted to feel very intimate for them to build connections within themselves, because parenting can be very isolating. You know, if you are the only parent in your friend group, or if you're the only parent in your community, you don't have family members here, you just moved here, you can feel very alone. And so in our parenting classes, you don't feel alone, because there's other parents in the room with you. And then you can talk about all the things that happen when you're raising kids, because there's so many different things. But kind of ending that isolation, building community, and being around other individuals and having a voice is what we give them. You know, tell us if this is helpful. Tell us if there's something that we can do better. Or is there a topic that you would love to learn that we haven't touched on yet that we can bring to the classes? And so we kind of have an open discussion with them, but also through feedback surveys. In case they don't feel comfortable saying it out loud, they can always give us feedback on that.
So how do you balance your professional life and your personal life?
That's a really great question. I very, very early on established some just very good work-life balance boundaries. Because if you don't set them early on, they just kind of get away from you. But you also have to be flexible, because you never know what a day is going to look like. You know, there might be a family in crisis, and that means you're going to be working long hours. But we're here to show up for our families and help them with whatever it is that's going on. So if I have to work a few extra hours that day, to me, that's worth it, because we made a big difference in that family's life. But like on a typical day, you know, you have your work hours. The way you balance it is you kind of set your work hours. You're flexible as needed, of course, if something comes up. But you kind of have to give yourself an opportunity to disconnect from the work that you're doing in order for you to show up the next day. Because if you burn yourself out, you won't be able to do this work long term. Because it can be draining. It can be exhausting, because you're seeing difficult things that are happening, families that are going through crisis after crisis. And that could just be a little depressing sometimes. And again, for us not to lose that hope, for us to be the hope for those parents, we need to be able to take care of ourselves. And that's what we teach our parents too. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of your kids. So make sure you do a lot of self-care and you treat yourself with whatever that looks like. For me, that's vacations. I love to go on to town. I love to explore and travel. And so I think, like, on a day-to-day, it's just really having that disconnect. Once I leave the office, like, work stays there. I go home. I focus on other things. Then I show up the next day to do it again.
So how do you stay motivated to do it all?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just seeing, like, the smile on the families that we serve, just seeing the hopefulness that they have when we show up. And so for me, it's like I'm just chasing that motivation, just knowing that there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of things that we can do to the community. I've always been driven by wanting to kind of leave behind a legacy, and what are some things that we can change to make a better community, uplift our families, our communities. And that's kind of what drives me, just being able to be a part of that. I'm not the one doing it. I'm just a part of the story, but everyone as a collective is doing their part. And so I think for me, just the motivation of just seeing a better community and a more uplifted and thriving community.
So speaking of legacy, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, professionally, I'd say, my kind of short-term goal right now, I am a director for my specific program. So in parenting, I hope to continue building my leadership skills and just to eventually be able to run either departments as a chief programs officer, meaning you run all the departments and support the directors that are running those programs, or a chief strategy officer, meaning you kind of develop strategy for the nonprofit and just seeing how the different things can collaboratively work together. And then my long-term goal would eventually be to be a CEO of a nonprofit, hopefully the nonprofit I'm working for now. But, I think that's just a good goal that I've set for myself, because the more that you develop your skill set and your leadership, the more impact you can have, because then you can start making those decisions that drive an organization to provide these programs in different ways.
So what future goals do you have for parenting support services, and are there any new programs you hope to launch?
Yeah, so for right now, we're just trying to make sure we end the year strong, continue to support our families through these seasons. For next year, it just kind of depends. A lot of it just depends on kind of what happens politically and just the support that we get from the community. So as you may or may not know, nonprofits, we're not in the business of making money, right? We're in the business of helping people and, helping our communities. And so the way that we do that is through foundation support. So foundations that provide, monetary, financial support through our volunteers, through individuals that do drives, diaper drives for us on our behalf to help support the work that we do. And so there's also opportunities, if you're already established in your career, if you're an attorney, if you're an accountant, or whatever it is that you do, you can sit on nonprofit boards and support in that way. You're volunteering your time to guide the organization in its decision-making and things like that. And so I think for us, it just depends on kind of how the year goes. We're going to continue showing up for our families, continue setting these goals and not living kind of in that fear of the unknown instead of just showing up and doing what we do every single day. And so my hope is to eventually expand our program and to go into different counties around North Texas, because right now we're only in Dallas County, but we know there's so many other surrounding counties that don't have accessibility or resources or programs like this. So my goal is to eventually go to those communities as well.
Have you ever thought about starting your own nonprofit?
No, I haven't actually thought about that. Hope Cottage has been around for 107 years. So that's, to me, an amazing, thing to be a part of, to be a part of the story of, an organization that has such a strong connection to Dallas, because it was founded here in 1918. And so that hasn't crossed my mind. I think, me and my sisters have just, because my sisters are also Townview graduates, we've just said, I think we all just kind of fell into the careers that we were just meant to be in. And so I feel like right now I'm in the right place, and I'm just a very big fan of what Hope Cottage does and its mission. And so I hadn't considered, starting my own nonprofit. I mean, we never know what the future may hold, but right now I feel like supporting the mission of Hope Cottage is what I'm called to do.
So how do you hope to expand community collaboration, and what long-term impact do you want to leave on the families you serve?
So for us, like I said, networking and relationship building is a big part of what we do. And so for me, it's just kind of researching, learning about the community needs. And also hearing back from the people. If I'm going to a brand new community that I am not very well informed about, the first thing I'm going to do is just talk to the families, talk to the other nonprofit leaders that are in that space, and ask them about what it is that they're seeing. Is there a need for what we're doing to be there in those communities and to uplift the families there? And so for me, that's kind of where it starts. Like I said, I don't come in as the expert and say, yeah, I know exactly what you need. I come in and ask questions, and I listen. There's a very big skill on just hearing, understanding, and taking in what someone is sharing with you. It's very important for us to just be able to take that feedback and then say, okay, is there an opportunity for collaboration there? And would it be helpful to you and to your community for us to come in and provide our programs there? And so that's kind of how it works. And I think for us, again, just leaving our parents with education, skills that they need to, have a good parent-child relationship with their children, to identify early childhood needs, to help them with their development, because the 0 to 3 years are so important in child development. And maybe a lot of parents don't get the support that they need to understand what that looks like, or what impact do they have, because they have a very big impact. Your parents or your caregivers, whoever that is. They're your first teacher, before you get to school. And so you want to just make sure that they feel empowered and that they feel educated on making the best decisions for them, for their family, and to have a good relationship with their child. And so I feel like being able to provide them with this knowledge for them to put into practice is very powerful for them to make those decisions.
You said that your sisters came to Townview. What schools did they go to?
Law. Yeah. Remember I said, I was like, when you're the oldest, you kind of set the tone. And so, so they both graduated from the Law Magnet as well.
If you could go back, would you do a different school?
I think looking back, I wouldn't change anything, because I feel like it's just a part of my story and a part of my history of just how I developed everything that I learned and I grew into. I did an internship at a law firm in high school through the Law Magnet, and then in college I worked at a law firm, summer internships in law firms. And so I still feel like a lot of what I learned in the law field helped me know that that's not what I wanted to do long term. I really enjoyed my time there. I learned a lot. I got to meet a lot of different people. But ultimately, I think it's still a learned experience that had I not had that, who knows, I would have questioned whether or not, I was where I was meant to be. But now I know with certainty that I'm meant to do this.
So what advice would you give to students who are unsure of what they're trying to do in life?
Yeah, I think it's just try different things. Don't be afraid of that. I think sometimes we hold our own selves back, and there's this quote that I've heard before. It's like, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right, because it starts with your mentality. If you think you can't do something, you probably can't, because you probably won't try it. Or whether you think you can, you're going to go for it. And even if you fail, it's not something that you should be ashamed of, because it's still a learning experience. You at least had the courage to try. And so I think just try different things, explore different extracurriculars if it's something that you're just curious about. I was always curious about, and that's one thing that I didn't do when I was here, was in art class. The art teacher, told us to get on the clay wheel. And he's like, even if you don't think you'll be good at it, just try it. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not really that creative. So I just never tried. But who knows, had I tried, who knows what would have happened, right? Maybe I think I tried it one time. But, I think just don't stop yourself from trying something new if you're curious about it. Hype yourself up, don't talk yourself down. It's like, oh, I can do it. And even if you stumble along the way, that's okay. Hey, you still had the courage to try and you went for it. And ultimately that's going to be a part of your experience, and it's going to help you feel more comfortable with things. And so I think ask questions. I think y'all doing this series of interviewing alumni, I think is really amazing, because I would have never heard of nonprofit, if it wasn't for, the whole story I just told y'all. And so I think just getting in different people from different fields for students to learn about the different, opportunities that are out there, different careers that y'all can do. I think that's a really great way for y'all to kind of discover maybe what interests you might have.
Okay. So I guess that leads us to our last question. This is our KSBM signature question. If you could go back and give advice to your high school self, what would you say?
I tell myself to just go for it. I was a little shy back then. I was very involved. I was in the National Honor Society and Skills USA, and very just academically involved. But there was also, I think, opportunities for me to just kind of speak up more, or even do more public speaking or leadership roles. And I feel like telling my past self, it's like, hey, just go for it. Even if it's scary or if it seems intimidating, do it scared. It's fine. Just do it scared, and it's okay if you feel intimidated or scared by something. But like I said, those experiences are ultimately going to shape you and just bring you those additional skill sets that are going to be really helpful in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez, for sharing your story and insights with us today. From your early days at Law Magnet to becoming a leader in social work and family support, your journey shows us your dedication and how far dedication can serve you and take you. Your story reminds us the skills we build at Townview, such as communication, leadership, and critical thinking, are truly universal. We appreciate the inspiration you shared with our students and listeners today. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. This conversation is just the beginning of our SBM 50 and TMC 30 alumni series, celebrating graduates who continue to create and change their communities and beyond. Be sure to follow us on all social media and subscribe so you won't miss our next episode. Until next time, this has been KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview. Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Thank you for listening to KSBM Radio, the voice of Townview.
My radio station.
We hope you enjoyed the great content and great discussion, all from a student's perspective. Make sure to follow us on Twitter for the latest updates at KSBM_TVT or on Facebook at KSBM Radio.
Add them on Facebook.
Check them on Facebook.
Take care.